A newspaper at a large college wants to determine whether sexual harassment is a problem across campus for all students. The paper takes a simple random sample of 1,000 students and asks each person whether he or she has been a victim of sexual harassment on campus. About 350 students refused to answer the question. Of those who did answer, 2% say they had been victims of sexual harassment. The college claims that sexual harassment is not a large problem at the campus based on these results. Well, I wouldn't be claiming that, but that's a whole other discussion. All right, so is the purpose of doing this study descriptive or inferential? Explain in the context of the situation. Well, it's inferential. I mean, they're trying to make an inference. They're trying to make it right there. Inferential. The college wants to make a claim about sexual harassment for the entire college. Now, why is this a problem? Why was I saying, I wouldn't make that claim? So, why would we be cautious about this 2% value? So, you'll notice, by the way, 1,000 students is not the problem. We'll learn more about that in Chapter 9, but 1,000 students is actually fine. So, that's just a little note. Don't get sidetracked by those types of questions in Chapter 1, in Section 1.5. So, that's perfectly all right. 1,000 is just great. No problem. The bigger problem is that you had 350 out of the 1,000 refused to answer, which is 35%. That's a non-response bias. Now, why is it a problem? Well, there's probably a good reason that those 350 did not respond. Or maybe not, but we don't know, right? It is possible that a large number or a large percent of those students didn't feel safe responding. Or did not feel they could respond. Or we didn't want to. Or maybe it's just fine, but we don't know. Right? So that 2% is not really fair, right? It's not really a fair representation of all students. Oops, except I ran out of room to write representation of all students. Because so many of them did not respond. I'll just make a note. That's huge, right? 35% refusing to respond is big, right? That's a large percentage. So maybe there's a reason for it. All right, number 3, example 3. A story titled Personals, Sex Sites, Changing the Rules of Love, which is a real article on MSNBC.com, reports results of a study about online dating by the MSNBC network. So they did a study by this network, this news network, and the study used online responses of 15,246 people. Wow, that's a lot of people. Of those who responded, 3/4 were men and about 2/3 had at least a bachelor's degree. One reported finding one reported finding, yes, from that study was that, quote, only 29% of men go online intending to cheat, end quote. Identify the potential biases in this study. So there's 2 of them. There's 2 types of problems with the study. So 1, there's a sampling bias. This is a convenient sample, right? So bias number 1, it's a convenient sample. It's only the people that bothered to write in, right? So they're self-selected. It's an online poll right there, right? So an online responses. So that's not good, right? And number 2, you're asking about them intending to cheat. Intending to cheat, that's a little bit negative, don't you think? So Hey, are you intending to cheat? Are you going online to cheat? Right? So asking about people intending to cheat is a bit negative. So you have problems with wording of questions. And so that would mean, well, quite frankly, who's going to admit that they want to cheat? I mean, really. So it could be a negative wording of question. It could be that people don't want to tell the answer. So it could be a misrepresented answer problem. Misrepresented. There we go. I can spell and talk at the same time. Misrepresented answer. We don't really know which one. I mean, they're both pretty terrible, right? So we have a wording of question answer and a misrepresented answer. So both of these are a response bias, right? We don't really know which one's happening. Maybe both of them are happening. So we have a sampling bias in that we took a terrible sample. Doesn't matter how big it is, it's still terrible. And then we have response bias issues, probably two of them. Namely, when you're talking about cheating, that's kind of negative, and then people are going to lie and not tell you the right answer, right? So we have two types of biases. One last thing before we go, which is that when a sample is convenient, like this one is, nobody from MSNBC or anywhere else should be reporting on it. It is unscientific, it is terrible, and is statistically worthless. So MSNBC should not be reporting right when this happens. This is not how you should be doing this. And to be fair, a lot of news organizations do not do this. MSNBC might have had its reasons because they felt it was fluffy, but it should not. They should not report this way. Right? Because it's terrible. Report, I guess, about this topic is what I mean. If you're going to do a bad sample, you should at least let us know you're doing a bad sample. But what I mean is they should not be doing an article about this at all. Right? And that actually is what this bit.ly links leads to. There's a news media critique podcast called On the Media. And this is a 7-minute rant at the end of that show about how news media organizations should stop doing this. They should stop doing these fluffy polls and reporting about them like they matter because they're statistically worthless. And one other thing to note. Did you catch how big that sample was? Because it was huge. It's right here. And it doesn't matter. A large sample size does not make up for the fact that it's biased. It's better to have a simple random sample of a few hundred than a volunteer sample of tens of thousands. Because it doesn't matter that it's tens of thousands if it's terrible, right? If it's a convenient sample, 15,000 won't make up for the fact that it's just convenient. And I said it before, but I'll say it again. Quality matters more than quantity in samples. And we would all do well to remember that.